Thank you all for being here and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Amelia Neptune. I'm the director of the Bicycle Friendly America program at the League of American Bicyclists, and we are absolutely thrilled today to be able to bring three really awesome case studies to you on the topic of e-bikes for everyone, how cities are making e-bike ownership a reality. I want to start by giving a huge thank you and shout out to UL Standards and Engagement, who helped make this webinar possible and is our partner in planning and organizing and moderating it today. And a huge thank you also to the cities of Denver and Boston and Atlanta, Propel ATL, for joining us and speaking. Again, my name is Amelia Neptune, and as host, I just want to start with a couple housekeeping notes. We are recording today's webinar, and we will be posting it to the League's YouTube channel, as well as to our webinar archive, which you can find at bikeleague.org/webinars. If you're watching live today, the closed captions are available, and you can turn them on or off at any time from the bottom of your Zoom menu. And we should have time for Q&A at the end, so please do feel free to type in your questions at any point, and we'll try to get to those live at the end or via chat if we can. And we'll be sharing some links to resources as well. And all of those links, as well as the slides and the recording, will be posted on our archives page. So those are our housekeeping notes. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer at UL Standards and Engagement.
Awesome. Thanks, Amelia. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much to the League of American Bicyclists and our leading ladies in micromobility that are joining us today to talk about established e-bike programs in Denver, Boston, and Atlanta. As Amelia shared, I'm Jennifer Bradley, and I'm Senior Manager of Partnerships of UL Standards and Engagement. When it comes to e-bike incentive programs, UL Standards is focused on educating organizers on the importance of lithium-ion battery safety and best practices for charging. So when an organization integrates UL safety standards into their e-bike rebate program, city leaders, first responders, and citizens alike can be confident that with the new and exciting bikes and batteries come safely designed products on and off the road. If your organization is interested in learning more about how cities and towns are incorporating safety standards into their e-bike programs, please reach out to me after the webinar. I would love to speak with you. So as I mentioned, our three esteemed speakers today, Sue Baldwin with the Denver office on climate action, sustainability, and resiliency. We have Rebecca Serna, Executive Director of Propel ATL in Atlanta, Georgia, and Anna Jacobs, e-bikes Program Coordinator with the City of Boston. And we will be starting off hearing first from Sue. Sue, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, I'm Sue Baldwin. I'm with the City and County of Denver in the Climate Action Office, and we have a long name, Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resiliency. We are I will move on here and show you this. We're the Climate Action Office. We are a separate agency within the City and County of Denver. We started in 2020. We fortunately had a lot of residents who believed in some of the things that we were starting to do, and they voted to have a 0.25% sales tax, and that's what funds our office. So that generates about $40 million a year. 50% of our work really has to be focused on equity, whether that's 50% of the participants or 50% of our funding, but we do have an equity mandate to reach out to all residents who might be in some climate challenged areas. And just to give you, we have 6 allowable uses, as you can see here. We have green workforce, renewable energy, climate justice, adaptation and resiliency, buildings and home, and then I'm in the sustainable transportation team. And how we work, we basically are looking at market transformation programs, rebates to get out to residents to create behavior change, whether that's through the e-bike rebate program. We have a team that does solar projects and EV charging and et cetera. So we really do focus on that programmatic incentive side of things to get people to alter their behaviors. So as far as the e-bike rebate program goes, so as part of that tax, when it was started in 2020, there was a Denver Climate Action Task Force that then went down to what we had a Sustainability Advisory Committee, which is really how the e-bike rebate came about. So we learned from other cities what they were doing, looked at how to create equitable programs that offer these kind of subsidies for people that purchase e-bikes. So really in that work, and I've been with the Climate Office since April of 2023. So I did not start the program. I was lucky enough to inherit it from some smart people that really got it started. But when we looked at, why e-bikes, we looked at car trips originating in Denver and really focused on that 0 to 5 mile trip, which was the lion's share of the car trips that are taking place in Denver, and the ones that could be most likely replaced by an e-bike, because you typically see like a 3 to 5 mile trip range with an e-bike. So the e-bike voucher launched on Earth Day in April of 2022. We did $400 for all residents, $1,200 for income qualifier Denver residents, and then we had a $500 add-on for e-cargo bikes, and that was our first year in 2022. And so kind of how did we do it? Thinking that through, as being a city agency, we said really our North Star is to keep it simple for all parties involved, right? For us, for the bike shops, for the consumers. So really the first thing we did was we hired a third party to do the reimbursement and fulfillment, because as probably many know that work in government, it's difficult for the city to activate around contracts and payment. And so we looked at all the places where we would have to reimburse people and thought it made sense for us to have a third party that does all that fulfillment work for us. Right. It was a point of sale rebate. We are within a first come, first serve process. The state of Colorado and other cities in Colorado are able to do random selection. However, our city attorney's office are very committed to the first come, first serve process. Point of sale rebate, bike shops. One of the other pieces was to ensure, right, our bike shop partners were reimbursed within a very short amount of time. So we weren't asking our partners to really hold on to that liability of the rebate in their business. So really our bike shop partners are reimbursed within a few days. And then our recipients receive the vouchers via email within roughly about 7 days of release. And the reason that takes that time is that when you apply, because of the first come, first serve, they go very quickly, right? They go within minutes, and applicants are uploading their documents, their proof of residency, and if they're income qualified, their proof of income qualification. We hand verify each one of those documents, and then they resend out the voucher information once they've done all the document verification. The other piece too, we allowed our participating bike shops to be within 5 miles of the city and county limits. The thinking around that is that when you looked at sort of the map of bike shops and where they existed, there were places that were like bike shop deserts that didn't have bike shops that were close within the city and county, but they had some that were just over the city and county line, for example, in Wheat Ridge. So we expanded that so that bike shops could participate within 5 miles. We also want the voucher redeemers to have a relationship with the local bike shops, so that they're not getting them. We're not allowing them to do online. We want the bikes to be able to be repaired locally. As you probably have learned, there's a lot of bike shops that won't work on electrical systems that they don't know or did not sell. So they must have a brick and mortar shop and a service facility. And the e-bikes must be fully assembled. I know there are some companies that like to sell bikes in boxes and let you take them home, but we have said that from a safety perspective, and also just to cement that relationship with that bike shop, we want the e-bikes to be fully assembled when they when they come out of the store. So here are our results from these are to date. We've sent out nearly 15,000 applications. We're just over 9,000 in redemptions on purchases. As you can see, 52% of those go to our low or moderate income residents. 47% of those are e-cargo bikes. To date, we've also spent just under $9 million in vouchers redeemed, and 72% of that spending has gone to our low and moderate income residents. And right now we have about 30 bike shops that are participating in our program. We do an annual survey. So really just trying to get our heads around what people are doing, how are they utilizing their e-bikes, are they replacing trips? If they are, sort of what kind of mileage are we seeing? So as you can see, the from our e-bike redemption folks, weekly e-bike trips, their 2023 was 4.3. As you can see, their round trips have gone up in 2023 to 6.8, which is sort of over our initial target, which is terrific. They're replacing an average of 3.4 trips, and 29% of our respondents indicated that they were new cyclists. This is based on our 2023 data. We're just going out with our 2024 survey, so we'll have some updated numbers soon. So here gives you an idea of sort of the weekly average estimated vehicle miles traveled replacement. So the overall average is 23, just over 23. For our standard voucher, which is our standard voucher is $300, and our income qualified is $1,200. So our standard voucher is just under 21, and our income qualified is just under 26. So just to give you an essence, sort of after that first year, some of the changes that we made, because we're first come, first serve. Initially, that first year was an 8 a.m. launch, which made it difficult for those who aren't right in front of their computer all the time or don't have time to get to the library. You know, it helped. It made our equity balance a little bit unequitable, I guess. And so we shifted the application time to 11 a.m. to allow people, if they needed to go to the library or to another location to access a fast internet, they could do so. The other thing we did is we created a community-based organization program. So basically what that did was, if you're a nonprofit that serves people in the community, you could create a relationship with us, and then you could just send over directly folks that would have qualified to some of these under-resourced individuals. And we also added an adaptive voucher for our disabled residents. So after the first year, we reduced the amount. We wanted to extend our budget. How the climate office works, we had a lot of money in the first year because this program was one that could get up and running really quickly, where some of the others that, incentive programs took a little while to get out there. So we had a lot of money to spend in kind of that first year, but then we had to cut our budget a little bit in the second years to come. So we added, in addition to the low income, which was $1,200, we added a moderate income category to sort of capture another market segment where that was a $700 voucher. And then we heard from our bike shops that we did 5 releases a year, but the release came at the same time as the expiration date. So there was sort of this cycle of inventory that was a little bit of a challenge for our bike shops. So we extended the voucher time from 60 to 90 days. I don't know that it necessarily changed our redemption numbers per se, but it just was a better sort of for our bike shop partners, so that they were, having regular sort of, a stable inventory. We started with some safety messaging. So everybody gets a welcome message that, gets a safety message on how to, one, safely ride, safely charge, wear a helmet, how to lock your bike up, etc. We've done some quarterly surveys, and then we also do an annual survey. We didn't do it in September this year. We're doing it right now. Just we were a little bit late in the process. So thank you to UL, our friends there. So we basically, for 2023, we followed New York City's lead on safety. We required all of our bikes to be UL certified, or the bike shops to be in the process. So for example, Rad Power has a shop here, and they were in the process of UL certification. So we grandfathered them, and I think it's Giant Bikes in, because they had been in the program and were well along the way. And then the other piece we did with our, we have a zero waste team. So we required all of our bike shops to have a battery recycler relationship. So a lot of them, the manufacturers, have that relationship with the People for Bikes program, but some of them don't. So we had required them to find a local battery recycler who was doing the right thing in terms of, getting rid of the lithium-ion batteries if they needed to. And that was our biggest change for 2023. So in Colorado, we have an interesting situation in that we have a Colorado energy office that is doing some of the same programming that we are. So we've had our e-bike rebate program since April of 2022. On April 1st of this year, all Colorado residents received $450 off the price of an e-bike, and that was a legislation that passed in 2022. We made the choice not to make those stackable with the vouchers in 2024. It was a little bit of it's a complicated situation in that if you do participate in the state tax credit program, you don't get reimbursed for a year for the first year. In the second year, you get it every quarter. But we had a lot of bike shops that were not sure if they would actually make it, if they had to, like, for example, one of our bike shops that sells only e-bikes, if they sold the same number of bikes in 2024 that they did in 2023, they'd be looking at about $1 million in liability that they'd have to hold for a year. So a lot of our bike shops held off participating in that program. Therefore, we said, we're going to just continue with ours as is, see how the tax credit flushes out, which it's been really successful. And then, reevaluate for 2025. It's not been without its hiccups, for sure. First come, first serve creates a lot of challenges. Our vouchers are gone within minutes. And so people are unhappy. We had breakfast with the mayor and he says, "Oh, you're the most popular person in Denver." And I said, "Nope, 500 people love me, 17,000 are mad." And so it's not without its challenges because we just aren't able to get our city attorney's office to move on letting us go to random selection. So we do have a lot of unhappy people that have tried and tried and tried for whatever reason, whether it's slow internet service or they just don't have their documents, quickly enough, that haven't been able to do it. And that first come, first serve continues to make that equity balance and that application process a little bit of a challenge. So we continue to try to find ways to make that application process more equitable. As with probably in a lot of other cities, we hear a lot about bike theft, as e-bikes definitely have a lot of popularity on the marketplaces. We still, even though Denver has invested a lot in bike lanes and continues to be very forward thinking in that area, there are a lot of people that still feel very unsafe riding wherever it is. And then the other piece that we're starting to look at is bike maintenance, because we have, from our income qualified folks, for example, a flat tire can cost $50. We hear a lot from them on, "I can't afford to fix a flat." So have we really done the right thing in terms of, helping somebody get an expensive asset that they can't afford to repair? So we are looking at, for example, like a fix a flat program where we, pay the bike shops, reimburse the bike shops for flat tires, for example, throughout 2025, so that we don't have bike shops or e-bikes that are just sitting in garages and not being used. And then therefore, that they decline even more if they're not being properly serviced and used. And you can see here I just put some of our comments. These are some of our comments from our last survey. Secured bike storage is another thing that, we continue to look at options for bike lockers and, do we do a citywide system? We haven't quite gotten there yet, but we're working on that. And then here's just some of our comments from our redeemers. And, you look at some of our folks that have been able to move from a 2-car family to a 1-car family. And it's great. And they loved being able to support local bike shops. It's got more people, anecdotally, I think we've heard from all of our TMA partners, even though we necessarily, we've only gotten, almost 9,000 e-bikes on the road. There are a lot more e-bikes out there. One of our top e-bike shops has said before the voucher program, the demographics were older, right? Probably 65 sort of minimum that were coming to buy e-bikes. And now that has definitely dropped to a lower group. So just a couple of happy comments to end up with.
Sue, thanks so much for sharing. And I see that we're starting to get some questions in the Q&A. Please continue to add those there. We'll address those at the end, and we'll turn it over to Rebecca.
Great. Great. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. Rebecca Serna in Atlanta, and I'm going to be sharing more from the perspective of an advocate. So Propel ATL is a nonprofit advocacy organization. We work to make safe streets and transit more accessible for everyone. And so a lot of the information that's been shared from other cities really inspired us. And so I'm going to talk about that path from inspiration towards having an e-bike rebate program. So first, the idea, like all good ideas, it came from a listserv. Here's the listserv if you'd like to join it. Um, but in all seriousness, kind of casting an eye around the country and the world has really benefited us. We've taken a lot of ideas from other places like open streets and now e-bike rebates and adapted them and adopted them in Atlanta. It also involved a spreadsheet. So I want to credit that e-bike incentive programs tracker. That was very inspiring as well, just to see that grow and build. And I think that helped us in making our case to elected officials. Don't worry, this is tried and true. There's a lot of data behind it. And here are the folks that can show you how it works. And so it also built on what we were starting to see in our neighborhoods here in Atlanta, particularly in the wealthier neighborhoods. We saw a lot of e-bike adoption. It was almost like overnight, it really took off. I started riding an e-bike kind of accidentally when I was pregnant with my second child and having a hard time navigating Atlanta's hills. A bike shop that rented bikes and sold used bikes had an e-bike available. I think it was maybe an old uh, patrol bike or something like that. So I borrowed that for the remainder of the pregnancy, and it was really a game changer for me just to be able to stay on the bike. So once we had the idea, we really needed to find champions. And one of the early champions of this was a staff member of our metropolitan planning organization, the Atlanta Regional Commission, and not coincidentally, a former employee of our organization, which was known at the time as the Atlanta Bicycle Coalition. And we're joined by my dogs today because I work from home. So apologies if you can hear them. So Bennett really was advocating for this idea. You know, we would run into each other at school drop off and he would say, hey, I saw another city is doing e-bike rebates. Let's talk about trying to bring this to Atlanta. So from there, the organization that I work for, Propel ATL, we do an annual policy and infrastructure agenda where we choose 3 to 5 issues each year or projects that we really push for throughout the year with our advocacy campaigns. And so in 2023, we included making e-bikes more affordable on that agenda. From there, once we set the agenda, we meet with local elected officials and we try to pitch our ideas. And over tacos, speaking with our councilmember, Matt Westmoreland, who's an at-large city council member, so he represents the whole city. He really, really liked this idea and he felt like it would be very popular, and he was right, but I'll tell you more about that in a minute. And then I think another key reason why we were successful is that there were so many stakeholders because so many people wanted an e-bike. They were seeing people out there on the streets with them, but for most people, they were still just out of reach from a cost standpoint. And then we also have a lot of bike shop owners in Atlanta that are small local businesses, really embedded in the communities, and they knew this would benefit them, as well as people who are advocates for community health, equity, really so many issues that e-bikes can help chip away at. And then finally, we needed someone to implement the program. And fortunately, with Bennett's role at the Atlanta Regional Commission, he was able to convince them to take on the program administration. A little bit on the reasoning for that is our city was unfortunately not able to distribute rebates due to some aspects of state law, but the Atlanta Regional Commission is able to do that. So in making the case and kind of building up the case for why this was needed, we needed to establish why there was a problem that a rebate program would solve. And so this really came out of some research that we'd done of our audience and stakeholders, where we just asked what their biggest barrier was to owning an e-bike. And most people said it was just the high cost. But there was also a significant percentage of people who cited the lack of safe biking infrastructure. And of course, that continues to be a problem. But the great thing about this e-bike rebate program is it creates a virtuous cycle because every new person who gets on an e-bike becomes an advocate to some greater or lesser degree. So rather than create a program right off the bat and just roll it out, what Councilmember Westmoreland recommended doing was creating a working group. So the initial piece of legislation put together this group and named the organizations that would be on it. And because e-bikes and biking can address a wide range of issues, and we knew that would bring in a wide coalition of support for the program, we brought in many different organizations, including our local community foundation, the Partnership for Southern Equity, which focuses on a more equitable region. And then we included council members, we included city staff and personnel, as well as our organization and a couple others. So it really brought a range of perspectives to the table. We had sustainability folks, and it helped us put together a program that had very broad appeal. And then in that process with the working group, we only met a few times. We found that there was pretty broad agreement on the outlines of the program. But the key we tried to keep top of mind was to fix the main problem that we had identified, which was the lack of affordability of e-bikes. And so through that, and with the organization's support that were part of that working group, we decided that we wanted a majority of the funding, and we settled on 75% of the funding available for the rebates to go to low-income households. And we also wanted it to be upfront point of sale rebate, so folks didn't have to have cash on hand, and use that to make it more accessible to more residents as well. And then selecting the administrator, that was really the hardest part of this whole process, was just finding out who could administer it. And we were asked many, many, many times to do it with Propel, but we were at the time a 5-person organization covering a range of sustainable transportation modes. So I felt like it would be really a stretch for our capacity. So I'm grateful that the Atlanta Regional Commission took that on. A little bit about our rebate amounts. And here I want to thank Denver and Sue, as well as every other city, Tampa we spoke with frequently, who gave us valuable insights into their programs. We were able to take that information and apply it and use that to kind of craft how we wanted our rebate to work. So we decided we wanted to focus on making the rebates cover as much of a bike cost as possible. And so that's how we settled on these amounts. And then again, dedicate the majority of the funding to folks who income qualified. So we set it at 80% of the area median income for that income qualified category. We also limited it to City of Atlanta residents because it was city funding, as well as to brick and mortar bike shops inside the city limits. And that's something that we'll continue to look at. But we have the same kind of bike shop deserts that a lot of places have, but we were fortunate that a couple of Black-owned bike shops had been opened up in recent years in one of those bike shop deserts in the city. So once the legislation had advanced and we had the program funding in hand, it also included some funding for Propel, our organization, to do education and outreach. And we knew this was essential from learning from other cities to go out to transit stations, have e-bike expos where anyone could stop by and test ride a bike, see other people riding the bikes, talk to the bike shop owners. So we did a number of e-bike expos at our Open Streets initiative, Atlanta Streets Alive, which has been going on for 14 years now. And so hundreds of people stopped by those expos, and it was a great way for people to have the chance to test ride an e-bike in a car-free environment, as well as to meet the bike shops that were present. We did table at MARTA stations, and then we offered e-bike safety classes to rebate recipients. And so that was because of capacity, knowing that there were going to be hundreds of people that received these rebates. These are just a couple of flyers for our classes, the program overall, and the expo. And then we talked with community leaders to help spread the word. So Amelia, if you can drop the link in the chat to our Instagram, there's a video on there that gives you a little bit of a feel for the type of outreach that we did. And I think it's really important for people to see themselves reflected in the programs that we do. And so reaching out to community leaders and asking for their support and spreading the word in their neighborhoods was a really valuable aspect of our outreach. But as Sue said, there were challenges, but with these challenges came additional opportunities. So I mentioned the 40% of people who said there's not enough safe bike lanes and scoot lanes for me to get around, and that's why I'm not going to purchase an e-bike or try and get an e-bike. So that continues to be a challenge. Just the administrative aspects of getting this program up and running. The opportunity there, flip side of that, is that more people with e-bikes, more advocates for the protected infrastructure. And then with the Atlanta Regional Commission having set up the back end of this program to do the income qualification, do the distribution of the rebates, work with the bike shops, have them under contract. We're a small, relatively small city within a very large region in Atlanta. And so the opportunity that we see, and I hope there are some folks on the call potentially help us spread this opportunity, is that other jurisdictions within Metro Atlanta can tap into this infrastructure that the Atlanta Regional Commission already has set up to be able to operate a program. So if, say, Brookhaven or East Point wanted to set up an e-bike rebate program in any amount, the Atlanta Regional Commission could easily get that up and running. But things that continue to be an issue, the lack of secure bike parking and multifamily housing especially. E-bikes tend to be pretty heavy, and if you have to lug them upstairs to get them inside your apartment and make room for them in your apartment, that's a challenge. And then also, people need ways to carry things on e-bikes. Right after the program launched, I ran into one of the recipients at a public meeting, and he was taking home some pizzas with him. And we spent about 20 minutes trying to lash them onto the back of his bike because he didn't have the bags yet, because that stuff can get expensive too. So we're thinking about how we can have some additional pot of funding available for those things. So briefly, a little bit on who applied for a rebate in round one. And also, side note, we decided to do a lottery system. So over a 2-week time frame, people could apply, and then they were selected by lottery. So that kind of removes some of those time barriers, and that overlapped with the weekend as well. And we also did multiple rounds of the rebate because we learned from other cities that it was harder to get the information out in some communities than others. And so having a longer time frame for the media coverage to start getting out, for people to be talking about their rebates on social media and that kind of thing would have an equity benefit. And in fact, that's what we saw. And in round one, Atlanta is a majority Black city, 52%. So we were pleased to see that a majority of the applicants were Black or African American. And then we saw a fairly even gender split, a little bit more heavily male. But the interesting thing to us was that about half of all applicants were income qualified. So that felt like a good reflection of that priority within the program. So far, of those round one rebates, 79% have been redeemed. And also interesting to us is that a higher percentage of the income qualified rebates have been redeemed compared with the general rebates. So all told, so far, we're going to have about 400 new e-bikes on the road in Atlanta. And this is an incredibly popular program. Very low percentage of the people who applied were able to be selected, about 5%. And so right now we're advocating for a next round of funding. Here's our contact information for myself and the program director here at Propel ATL, as well as Bennett Foster, our partner at the Atlanta Regional Commission. That's all I have. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Rebecca. And I see Bennett is joining us today too. So if we get to any Q&A and anyone has any questions for ARC, I'm putting Bennett on the spot. All right. Last but certainly not least, Anya, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Anna Jacobs. I am with City of Boston Streets Cabinet, and I work specifically with Boston Bikes team, which I would like to quickly mention what it means. So Boston Bikes team is a program side of the city's transportation and streets cabinet work. We are running events such as rides. We have teaching clinics for adults. We have a school-based program for youth. We do bike repairs, like pop-ups. We also have planners on our team who do the public bike share system. And then we have an e-bikes incentive program, which I am responsible for. So e-bikes incentive program is an ARPA-funded pilot program. So it is a federal grant, COVID relief money. It is structured as a point of sale digital voucher that we give to the applicants through a lottery, ranging between $800 and $2,400. And our aim with this limited funding is to assist 1,000 eligible Boston residents to purchase a new e-bike. We are serving 3 groups. We are serving seniors age 60 and plus. We are serving adults with disabilities and low-income residents who are at or below 40% of AMI. We originally were also hoping to serve moderate income residents, but because it's a federal grant, there were some guidelines of how the funding should be used. So we end up deciding that only low-income residents will be a group we will be serving. And as I said, about 1,000 people we aim to support over these 2 years. Our other goals include build confidence in riding an e-bike, accelerate mode shift and improve mobility, also increase physical activity for residents, and then support local bike shops and encourage growth in bicycle service and maintenance. We have evaluation consultant helping us evaluate the effectiveness of the program, Stantec. We also have, like Denver, contracted a vendor to help us run the program and customer service, especially during the applications time, and it is Aptim. And then we hired a local organization, Mass Bike, with outreach initially with bike shops and then support with some community events. Speaking of community events, we were a lot boots on the ground this summer as we were leading up to the first round of applications open in August. Community centers, community events, YMCAs, info sessions, in-person and virtual. Senior centers is where we were placing ourselves. Additionally, we had 6 Try an e-bike events, 2 at open streets, and then 2 specifically more dedicated at here downtown, as well as in 2 neighborhoods that are more low income, where there's more low income population. Additionally, we had in-person help sessions during the applications being open, and it was really great that we did it because we get to interact with people applying to the program and saw that the digital divide is real, you know, for seniors, or access to digital technology. And finally, as part of community outreach, we really tapped into the other departments. So Age Strong works with seniors, Disabilities Commission with adults with disabilities, and then Language and Communication Access Department were just instrumental for getting this going. Language and community access. So we have 11 main languages in the city. So we translated all the information, printed flyers, and all social media flyers to these 11 languages. Additionally, certain info sessions, virtual info sessions, had different interpreters, and we would record these presentations so that they're available in asynchronous time later. For one of them, we also had a sign language interpreter. Here's some pictures from Try an e-bike events, which we were running. Yeah, and so the round 1 applications has taken place. It was in August. We had 2 different types of applications. So rolling application was a longer period open. It's for adults with disabilities interested in adaptive e-bike. And general application is the lottery based for all eligible groups. And it was a shorter window of time. The difference between these two is that general application is lottery based, and applicant self-identifies that they qualify. They submit the form, and then if they're selected for a voucher through a lottery, they are notified and they have time to claim the voucher by submitting supporting documentation. And so our program administrator verifies the documents. Rolling application is different in that it is not lottery based. In a way, it is first come, first serve, but we portioned a good amount of funding, so we didn't anticipate running out of it. And then here, applicant submits their application along with supporting documents. We verify the documents, and if all looks good, we invite them to a bike fitting session with a bike expert for their adaptive bike. And that is an opportunity to try an adaptive bike, see if it actually works, learn about, you know, like the pricing option, the financing option, because adaptive electric bikes are, you know, they tend to be more expensive. Throughout this process, you know, we had an instance when somebody realized that they actually don't need an adaptive bike. They can ride a regular standard electric bike or a cargo bike. Voucher amounts, as I said, were between $800 and $2,400. So for the lottery, it was on the cheaper end, still a generous discount that they would receive between $800 and $1,500. And then for adults with disabilities, it was either $2,000 or $2,400 if they meet the income eligibility. Every applicant who received an e-bike voucher also got a second voucher, value of $150 for their safety equipment. And I will mention a little bit later safety equipment purpose. In the rolling application, we had a total of 36 applicants. 12 of them actually didn't qualify just because of their residency. They were not City of Boston resident. 24 people came to be fitted for the bikes, and actually I haven't updated this, but it's at this point it's 7 people who have redeemed their vouchers. People who receive adaptive e-bike voucher have 120 or 4 months to 120 days to redeem their voucher, and there's opportunity to extend it for whatever needed. Again, because these bikes are more expensive, we also fund the wheelchair attachment, that is powered hand cycle e-attachment. And these are custom built bikes. So yes, they're more expensive, and also it takes longer for them to be produced. They're made to order basically. And so there's a slower process here. For the general application, we had in the 2 weeks, 1,295 applicants total. And here's a breakdown of who applied. So basically, you can look at this as 5 categories, right? Seniors and income eligible seniors, adults with disabilities and income eligible adults, and then income eligible adults with disabilities. I mentioned that because, yeah, here's a breakdown. So about close to 20% were adults with disabilities who can ride traditional upright bike. 45% were seniors, and over half of applicants were income eligible adults. And so we, as I mentioned, used the lottery, and the way we distributed, like how many vouchers will go to who, was proportional to how many people applied in each of those 5 categories. Looking at the funding before the lottery took place, we also saw that we had a little bit less adaptive bike applicants. So instead of raffling 500 vouchers in round 1, we raffled 600 e-bike vouchers in round 1. And again, as I said, everyone received a $150 safety equipment voucher, which we limited to these items. So we mostly wanted people to buy locks, good locks and helmets. And as people redeem their safety equipment voucher, which they don't have to redeem at the same time or at the same shop where they're redeeming their e-bike voucher, because it comes as a separate unique code, that we are accomplishing our intention of getting locks and helmets. We've had a few people reach out to say like, hey, is phone holders included? And so there's a conversation with bike shops to have about this for the round 2. We also were really pleased with the outreach that we did because we saw a great amount of distribution around zip codes in the whole city. And Dorchester, where there's again also low income, a higher low income population, the biggest neighborhood of Boston. You know, we had a good amount of applicants, and every neighborhood there were applicants. So that was really great to see. Participating bike shops. We have currently 17. We are not bound to only City of Boston bike shops, but we also, like Denver, defined a geographic area, and it is cool to see how the bike shops are doing and redeeming the vouchers. There is another chart here explaining where people shop, which is also cool to see. We check in with bike shops and we hear cool feedback from most of them. There are 2 bike shops that are further out on like periphery of the defined area, and they haven't seen any or barely sales. So it seems like more people are shopping in town, or in like into the more to closer to Boston. And then because our vouchers are the value they are, some of the shops noted that people are looking to maximize the value of the voucher and try not to pay too much out of the pocket. We've also been getting feedback from participants. I'm currently leading a series of community building gatherings and rides, and so as I send these invites, people send in their feedback, which is great to see. And yeah, here's a picture down from the last week's bike ride. For the first one we did. So it is an invitation to everyone who has already redeemed their voucher, which as of today is 342 people out of 600. To join these, we have a first hour where we just chat and talk about bike safety and bike maintenance and road etiquette and layering properly for Boston's winter, which has been changing with climate, but still you need gloves sometimes. And then there's an optional going on a group ride as part 2, which we predetermine and we all ride together. So I have one second one coming tomorrow in a different neighborhood. We're also ramping up the evaluation. So the survey, the quantitative data collection was built into the applications. And now our consultant will be doing focus groups and interviews. And then we are starting to get ready for round 2, which will be the whole month of April. Applications will be open the whole month of April with a lottery on May 1st. Again, rolling application and general application. And that is when we anticipate exhausting our funding that is reserved for the vouchers themselves. So parallel to that, we're starting to identify potential new funding sources to continue the program because we have built all this structure. And it just seems like what we are seeing is working great. The distribution around the city, you know, the communities that we serve, the populations that we serve. This is an email. This is my email, and boston.gov/ebikes is the main official page of the program. There is questions and answers section that is maybe help you answer questions, but also feel free to reach out to me.
Thanks, Anya. I can tell just how much this program means to you, and I love that you were able to share your passion with us today. So thank you so much to you and Rebecca and Sue. So we will open it up to some questions now. So if you want to ask something of our panelists, please click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen so we can take care of your questions. Anya, you mentioned some really great feedback from your participating bike shops. I wonder if you might share with us how you educated those shop owners on the program and made them feel comfortable discussing the rebate with folks as they came into the shop, and any advice you might give our listeners around creating a nice relationship with retailers. And Rebecca and Sue, please feel free to chime in as well.
Thank you. I'll kick off and then let the other two take over. So what we did, I don't know if it was different than other programs, but we kind of wanted to be responsible for reaching out to the shops and not have an external, our program administrator necessarily do it. And then we invited Mass Bike, who is a local activist advocacy organization who already have connections. So them and us approaching the shops was an effective way to get their interest. The timing is always tricky. We hope to launch the program earlier. There were delays. There was the law department was reviewing terms and conditions much longer. And so we launched in like the worst possible time for the bike shops. But we did series of info sessions virtually. We did, presentation slides, recorded training slides, and just did our best of following up, emailing, calling, being available over call, over phone to help walk through the getting ready to redeem the voucher process. There was not too much that I felt shops I didn't go to a very big detail of telling the shops everything about the program. But instead saying direct them to this event, direct them to the page, send them to the Try an e-bike events. And so it is something I'm curious to learn more. I know that they've received a ton of calls. I know that it's important for the shops to know when the application periods are open and the eligibility groups, but then the rest is, a dance of information sharing.
I'm sure. Thanks so much. Sue, did you want to contribute to
Yeah,
that?
yeah, totally. I'm going to keep my video off because it does look like it makes my computer slower. So apologies for that. I do bike shop. I visit all the bike shops. I know Denver's smaller than Boston and Atlanta, but then I also do quarterly bike shop meetings. Like all of the changes that we've really made to our program, like the UL certification and some of the safety pieces have come out of those meetings because those, we're administrators of the program. We're the climate office. We're a little bit different than Anna and Atlanta's programs. So Rebecca's program, sorry. And so we really listen to what the bike shops have to say because they're really the front lines with all of those customers. And we've learned so much by just listening to them on a regular basis. So I feel like our program's better because they're such great partners and feel right. They're very opinionated. They know what's going on, which is terrific. But we listen to them.
That's great, Sue. Thanks so much. I want to ask another question that we received an answer to in the chat, but I hope we can create a dialogue here because I know it's a popular one about limiting vouchers to certain classes of e-bikes. And Rebecca mentioned that Atlanta does. Sue or Anya, do you all limit your vouchers to a certain class of e-bike?
We do have different standards. We don't allow full suspension mountain bikes as part of our program. But then we do allow pretty much other categories. But I will say we'll probably go back this year. A lot of our bike shops in particular wanted to talk about safety standards and that, our voucher is a $1,200 voucher that can cover almost the full cost of a bike. But that means you may not be getting a really safe bike or a bike that has longevity. And that's just a conversation that's been going on. So I'm guessing we may look at some other safety standards this year around brakes and around some other things, because we do hear from a lot of our low-income folks that have utilized that $1,200 voucher and bought a bike either under the $1,200 or right around there, that they are experiencing some problems with some of those lower end bikes. So whether we make the changes or not, we'll at least have the discussions with the bike shops about, does it make sense for us to have some minimum brake requirements as an example.
And I will also share, we do only limit to class 1 and class 2 bikes, currently e-bikes, because Massachusetts law only recognizes those as e-bikes. So if Massachusetts law changes, we would also take class 3 bikes, and we only allow UL 2849 certification, which yeah, we are pretty strict with that because of the reasons Sue mentioned, and you know, fire hazard safety, kind of being proactive in preventing anything like that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, ladies. It looks like Amelia is also adding some helpful links in the chat that address some of the questions that we've discussed and some resources. We see that you all have submitted some questions that we might not get to all of them. We'll try to answer them in the next few minutes. But before we sign off, another popular topic it looks like here is around maintenance. And I wanted to bring that up to each of you to kind of address what maintenance issues you're seeing. If, again, you're getting any feedback from the retailers, is there any sort of shortage of mechanics that are willing to work on the e-bikes? If we could kind of use that as our last topic here.
I'll jump in.
I think, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
This is something where we've talked about, we don't have a great solution for yet, but one way in which we've talked about it is thinking about workforce development and trying to tap into those resources locally to train more people to work on e-bikes, because we definitely are hearing from bike shops that it's a challenge to find folks with that experience. And it's such a great opportunity. So we've started talking with some of the organizations within the working group that have workforce development programs to see if that might be an area we could partner on in the future.
We've also talked to our workforce development teams. We haven't heard that from our bike shops yet. We seem to have a good group of bike mechanics that have a translatable skill. So I haven't heard that our bike shops are having a difficult time keeping employees and having the right kind of employees. Again, we're looking at hopefully funding a fix a flat program to keep flat tires, right? That's the thing we hear the most about. I think the next thing, again, are brakes. And again, we will for sure spend some time with our bike shops talking through what are the, sort of what are reasonable thoughts about maintenance and what we should support.
For us, we are newer, right? Our people are just getting vouchers redeemed, so no bike maintenance issues yet. What I wanted to bring to the attention is we are connecting people with resources of like free either bike repairs that we host or similar like tool time or bike kitchens that are in the area. That is helpful. And then also for all the e-bike voucher recipients, we have a commitment from the bike shops to provide 90-day free bike tune-up for the first 90 days, because each bike shop has different policy for that. So that is an opportunity for them if something happens in the first 3 months. But we don't have anything beyond. And of course, I'm thinking like, right, would we do a separate like voucher program for that? Like fix your e-bike that you got from apply for this mini voucher. So yeah, but those two we have.
That's awesome. Great. Well, I hope all of our attendees learned something today and you're ready to go forth and make another great e-bike incentive for a city or state near you. Thanks again, Amelia, for dropping all these really helpful links in the chat. My contact information is there as well. If your question did not get answered and you'd like help being connected to one of our panelists, I would be happy to help you do so. My contact information was the last message to be dropped in the chat, so feel free to reach out.
Thanks so much.
And we love to talk about the program. So if anybody needs to spend some time, we would love to do that. We love helping other cities learn from our mistakes and successes.
Amazing. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Jennifer. This has been great, and we look forward to sharing the recording out with everybody who registered. All right. Have a great day, all.